In this next video, I'm going to show you how to add texture to your slab that will eventually become your mug. Texture, this is pretty common sense, is the way the surface of something feels. So if I brush my hand across this table, it feels smooth, it has a smooth texture. If I were to touch something like this shell and feel that, it would have more of a bumpy texture. In art, artists purposefully create texture on things. Your mug will have a texture around the outside. So at this point, you want to find various objects. If you have something at home that you want to use, like a toy or some tool that you have in the shop or in your kitchen, any of these can make interesting texture. You could use the end of an object, you could use the texture on the side of an object, you could impress something. Seashells, natural objects work really well. I could use this for a circle if I wanted to. I could use my fettling knife to make sort of a different shape. I could even use the edge of my ruler to make kind of a liney texture. Figure out what you want to use for your texture. Then we'll get our slab back here, and you want to do this while the clay is still very wet. And I'm going to add texture to this. A key point as you start adding texture to your slab is that you think about pushing the texture, pushing one of these objects or multiple objects into the clay in such a way that it only goes about halfway through the clay. If you push too far, you're going to push through the clay and you're either going to create a hole or you're going to create a weak spot in the clay, which is hard to fix. So key point here is don't push too hard with the tool or object that you're making your texture with. So the way that I like to start is I like to kind of divide up my space here in an even way. So I just set my ruler next to the clay. You don't have to do this, this is just how I do it. And I'm going to make some little marks that I can wash away, that I can smear away, so that I know yours doesn't have to be every inch. Maybe you have something happening every half inch or every 3 inches, I don't know. You need to decide, or maybe you don't even do something like this. But I like to break it up just so I have an idea of where I'm going with my project and where the middle of things are. Next step is to actually make my texture. So I'm going to push. If you're using something like a ruler like this, be very careful. You do not want to push through. It will cut your clay. It can really weaken your clay if you do this too much. I'm trying not even to go halfway with this ruler. But I have my guide marks I used with my ruler to make this texture. And this should be cool because the glazes that we use will change color. They'll do interesting things depending on what the texture is. So glaze is just that glassy coating that coats ceramic objects. We'll get into that in a little bit. Maybe I use the back of this pencil to make dots. I'm trying to do it in an even way so they're all consistent. Again, yours don't have to, but many times it looks better if there's some order, if there's some sort of common sense way that things are organized in your artwork, in your mug in this case. Also, as you're making texture, realize that you might cut off a little bit of the end of your mug or the end of this slab when we actually join it together. Maybe now I use this object here, or this big thing right there. and I do that every other one. You get the idea. Remember, this is going to wrap around your project. So think about what you want yours to look like. I would not, and this is a big exclamation point here, I would not write things in the clay with something sharp. I would not draw texture with something like this. Because of the glazes that we use, will flow right over this groove. If it's not wide enough, it will do nothing and it will look washed out. So please do not write your name or write messages. This is about texture, not about writing or drawing. It's really about creating a textural surface with the objects. Once I'm happy with it, then you're ready to move on to the next step.